Hello, everyone. Welcome inside the Red Earth Production Studios for another edition of YBMcast, powered by Game 7 Baseball.
Game7baseball.com.
There it is. There it is.
I can't even do it remote.
That's right. We got Mitch over there remote, and he's still right on top of it. That's beautiful stuff. Game 7 Baseball started off the first weekend this past weekend in fall ball. Got a little rain on Sunday, so kind of a crusher. But other than that, it looked like there was some pretty good. I was out there a little bit Saturday watching some kids play. I always love watching that 14U when they come into fall ball playing on that bigger field. You kind of, that extra 10 feet, that extra space, that extra, what is it, six feet on the pitcher mound?
6.5, yep.
Yeah, it makes it makes a difference, and it really, so you kind of get a look at who's ready to take that step, who's not quite there. So I think it's all really interesting in the fall ball.
Oh, absolutely. And 14U is a tough age because you have a lot of really talented young men who just aren't physically there yet, and they struggle at 14U because they may have a really nice swing. They may hit the ball well, but not hard enough quite yet to get it out of the infield. Or, you may have to ask that young man to kind of temper everybody's favorite word, launch angle, and, go more for the line drive or the hard ground ball approach instead of getting the ball up in the air. And it's kind of funny to see, at 13U, those power arms that are throwing 75, 76 miles an hour, you put them on a 60-foot, 6-inch mound, that's no more power. These hitters are geared up, they're ready for it, and you got to be in that low to mid 80 range at 14, and you just don't see many kids there. So it is a big jump from 13 to 14.
It really is.
Yeah.
It really is.
And the bats. If you're one of those teams that elects to swing BB core at 14 instead of a -5, that's a huge difference.
We just talked about this not too long ago. As Dave's talking, I'm sitting here thinking, because last year was my first year of 14s, and I didn't play in the fall. We elected to kind of let the kids do their own thing in the fall, and I didn't have them. And so when I got them in the spring, I definitely felt I had not prepared them well enough early on for the season, for the 90-foot bases, 60 feet, 6 inches. And, obviously we were able to get that right because how we finished the season was, very different. But I'm one of those guys that strongly suggested to swing -3s and BB core to get prepared for high school baseball. And we did a show not too long ago about that conversation. And I was that guy. I was that coach. Call it what you want, but for me, it's about the preparation and actually having an extra 6 months to prepare them for high school ball is how I looked at it. So, we just had that conversation, and you're absolutely correct. This was a thing too when we talked about the Little League World Series. When they still pitch at not the regulations that they do in all the other leagues, they have smaller base, shorter base distances and mounds, and these kids are just pumping cheddar, and realistically that's not accurate. And so there's an awakening at 14U when you thought you were good at 13, and then you hit that 14U and you're not swinging those -5s with the big barrels, and you're swinging wood, or all of a sudden that 75 becomes 69, or 70 poo. It's like, here we go, and you saw this year, Brian, coming out there, that all you got to do is pump strikes, and that's what our focus was, and not velocity with guys like Titus.
Because in that conversation we had, and I understand working to get kids ready, and this was what set this off a little bit. Why not and you said this, if that kid isn't quite physically ready for that, why not let him swing a -5? I think it's silly to break down mechanics, to break down the structure of a swing, to put a -3 in the hand where he's not just quite physically there to swing that. Keep the mechanics, keep the swing, let him develop physically, and then move in that direction.
Yeah, I understand your point. You're going into 14U in our fall last year, we swung -5s. We didn't really even know any better yet. And then the fall ends, and we find out all these tournaments we signed up for, PBR, PG, it's all -3 if you're playing major. So it's like, oh, shoot, boys, not only do we need to start swinging these, you need to go buy them, and then we need to swing them all winter long. And, I had a couple dudes on my team who, struggled early on with the heavier bat, with the deadness of the bat. But as they became more familiar with it, it wasn't that big of a deal for them. And I understand your point of the smaller, less physical child swinging that -5 bat. And that's why I think maybe organizations like Game 7 and GMB allow -5 bats in their 14U events, is because they're taking that into account. And, you're really not forced to swing a -3 unless you're playing a major event. And very few smaller individuals at 14U are playing in those events to begin with. But me being a varsity baseball coach, I would love to know that my incoming freshmen are swinging high school bats in the spring and summer leading up to their fall as a freshman at my high school. And so I see both sides of it. I really do. It puts development over winning a little bit. If you're really a true developmental program and you want to get your boys ready for high school baseball, which is what every single club says they're doing at 14U, right, then you got to walk that walk.
That's fair. It's fair. I just and that was the conversation. I like to just hear it, and I think it's good that this is what we always wanted to talk about, these things.
Yeah.
And I want to say this. We were talking about this before we came on the show. Want to give a little PSA. Recently, there was a little bit of an issue with a softball coach and a player, an underage player. Some trust broken there, and some issues with, kids watching. I don't want to, adult stuff. We'll just put it that way. And this is what is problematic sometimes within our culture, is we're allowing ourselves as adults to move into a situation that we shouldn't be in. We need to have these young people be able to trust us. We need to foster a trust. And these are the things that break down that trust.
Yep.
And we're dealing with young kids that are learning, that we're trying to help them develop to be adults. And if we're breaking trust and they see these things and this is what's happening, what message is that sending, right?
You're 100% correct.
And Mitch, you're familiar with these things, and so I would just say I want people to understand we're not here to say, oh, this guy, that guy. What? That's not it. Let's focus on who we are as adults and doing the right things by these children. They need to learn how to trust adults. And this breaks down that trust. And so we just wanted to share that with you. If you're a coach, think about these things. What are you doing to show that right conduct when you're on the field? And I'm going to go to this. I'm going to bring this up. So I'm going to get on my soapbox now that you opened this up, Mitch.
Do it. At the end of the day, for me, it's already hard enough to gain trust from these kids, and now in the community, we're hearing these kinds of things. One, speak up if this happens to you. Don't hold it in, because it could be a lifelong journey that is a path you don't want to take. Speak up so we can attack this together as a community. But it's hard already to get trust from these young people, especially a male coach in a female sport, and then just in general, getting a young kid to believe in you as a coach. You believe in your style or whatever, your buy into your process, and this cannot happen. A lot of us do this for the vast majority, 99.9% do this for the passion to build these athletes up to great young men and women. It's the black eye like this that's going to create the storm that we don't want to be in, and we have to do a better job as adults, especially since these are large gaps in age groups. You do see this happen in colleges and stuff. You have a 21-year-old person with a 25-year-old coach. Relationships have been built. it's weird to me because of the relationship that we're supposed to give guidance, not personal feelings. And so you have to be able to separate that. You either leave the job or you leave the university. Yes, that's my take on this. It's hard to get trust, and we should not be breaking it by making these actions.
Yeah. At the high school level and below, especially being a male coach, coaching female athletes, you've got to really be conscious of what situations you're putting yourself in. You should never have one-on-one contact with a female athlete. You should always make sure there's someone else there, not just for her protection, but for yours as well, because allegations do arise, and it's very, very easy to get caught in something like that. And there's ways to avoid it. And if you're a high school coach, I coached high school softball for a while, you have ample resources to look at. You have tests you have to take that, clearly explain where the boundaries are and how not to overstep them. So
I appreciate that, guys.
It's available on Misha's website too. I think almost anybody can take that. You can correct me, Dave, if I'm wrong. It's a long test. I've had to take it both for coaching softball in high school and baseball. It is something that you learn boundaries real quick, and even to just being in the bad timing. Don't put yourself in a position where kids are changing or something of that nature. Like, get out of Dodge, because you'll be shocked about how many kids will just change just in the middle of nowhere just because they're rushing from a class. They got to get to the field. They don't have time to get to a locker room or something, or they want to change on a bus. Like, you cannot allow these things. The culture has got to be set ASAP. And I hope this is a learning opportunity for all the male coaches coaching female sports, and obviously, female coaches as well, because they still have the opportunity to build relationships. So,
yep. Well, I don't know if you guys are old enough. I'm old enough. I remember we took showers in high school. We had the locker room. You had the dudes. They've taken that away. There's no place to change.
Sure.
And I think that created some of these difficulties. Like you said, you see these kids out in the parking lot dropping trout to put on their baseball pants and stuff, and you're like, come on, man. Can't we get a locker room for these kids?
Well, I think COVID has something to do with that as well.
Yeah.
At the high school level, we have an awesome locker room for our baseball team. For a year and a half, we weren't able to use it. We had to change from the end of school to when we're walking to the field or get to the dugout and change. And these boys were used to being in a locker room, and it's all very different now. And it's just kind of adapting with the times. And us as coaches, and when it comes to adapting with how the game goes, obviously that's important. But we also have to adapt with how society views our young people now and how they view our authority over them. And there's so many more restrictions on us and what we can and can't do and what's acceptable and what isn't, that we have to be positive of what those are. And if you put yourself in the wrong situation, it's on you.
I appreciate both you gentlemen here, high school coach. These guys, they're in it. So what they're saying is not from just some outside perspective, but you guys are actually dealing with this every single day. So There you go, folks. All right, let's move on. Hey, I didn't introduce. I got my dog, Mitch Thomas, over there, Youth Baseball Talk, and to our right here, from the Recruits Baseball Club. We had him on last year. I really enjoyed talking to Dave. I wanted to get him back on. Dave Wiggins with Recruits Baseball. Good to see you, man.
Great to be here.
Yeah.
Great to be here.
Fall ball, we want to get into this, and we talked a little bit about that. We already threw the bat discussion in there. How important is fall ball for you guys, as you're moving into that next level?
That's a really good question, because with the fall being a season that isn't where baseball isn't a priority for a lot of kids. You have soccer players, you have football players. You want to make sure that you have the option available for the kids, but you don't want them to feel as though they're being strong-armed to do it. You want to promote multi-sport athletes. You want to make sure that your players feel comfortable being in your program and also being able to play other sports that they enjoy playing. But at the same time, you want to make sure they understand the importance of, continuing their summer season at an age group higher in the fall, competing against other individuals who also have the ability and time to play fall ball. And it really just kind of segues on into most clubs' winter trainings. It kind of, for the new players, it gives the coach or the organization a really good picture of who you are as a player and what you need to work on going into the offseason, going into the winter training. A lot of times we'll have a new kid who didn't play fall ball, and our first time seeing them is in November. It's like, oh, wow, I didn't even know you were in the program. Like, great to meet you. What can this guy do? But being able to see a player play the game is the number one ultimate way to know if they can play and at what level they can play. Not watching them in a cage, not watching them throw a bullpen, but seeing them face a live arm, seeing them face live hitters, seeing them handle adversity on the field. That's how you really get a good idea of, where this individual fits best and what they need to work on the most.
Yeah, I agree. This is actually baseball is new for me in this terms of the last few years I've been coaching. I've been in the softball ranks for a long time. And so this year is my first fall of trying to incorporate games into fall as a group, as a team, as a program, organization, whatever you want to call it. And so I'm learning how important fall sports are to other athletes, like the soccer, the football. We have people running cross country. And all of these things are helping, become a baseball player. So the luxury of owning my own facility and having my own teams is I can set the practices to where they're beneficial to, you can do your high school thing, or whatever your age group is, and then we can practice. So this is my first year experiencing that. And we talked about it as going far back to tryouts. I stopped running tryouts to where we're running, 60s and doing everybody at shortstop, everybody in the outfield, shag and fly balls. I started competing at tryouts because the competition is where you see what you get out of your athletes. And Dave's right. Like you have to compete, and you only can do so much when you're, inside of a cage and you're competing against your pitcher. You need to see your defense tracking down flares, how they communicate on the Texas Leaguers, and hitting cuts and relays. And you just can't take that for granted that everybody knows that nowadays. Those are assumptions season. And if you're trying to develop and you go out your first days in the first game action and you wonder why you can't hit your cuts and relays, that's on the coaching staff and the programs. That's on them. And so the fall I'm experiencing is more vital. Wow, can't even say the words right now. I've been working my tail off trying to do the cages, so I'm a little bit exhausted and tired. But it's I can't even think of the words right now. You have to do it. I'm learning that it's something.
Vital?
Thank you. Volatile. That's the word I was
going to say. Volatile for a second.
I was going to, and I was like, "Is that even a word?" Like, I mean, I guess I could pronounce it that way. I'm not. I don't know.
We're just baseball guys.
No, I'm dumb as a box of rocks, but I can hit. I think the rocks might be smarter than me. The guy that made the toy rock and made like millions of bucks. I'm the toy rock.
Pet rock. There you go.
Yeah, I sing.
You got a little moss on you,
Yeah. It's that dual color though. I got the dual color moss going. No, it's fall ball is absolutely. I'm seeing how important it is to just the development in general. Like he said, one thing that Dave really said that I liked was how it leads into your winter progression, because, we're doing so many different things. You can look at an athlete and go, okay, well, he needs to be in our pitching group. He needs to be in our hitting group. He needs to be in our catching group. That kid's got the catching down. Let's put him in our hitting group. You can identify player weaknesses in the fall to have them be successful through the winter.
Absolutely. Yep.
Guys, as we're working through these things, we're going to come up to that, to the winter workouts. How often, you play through the fall, you're seeing the guys, you're identifying that. So how important is that break? How important when you're done with fall ball, it's going to end in October sometime, how important is that break to the athlete to just let go of something? Or do you think they ought to just keep rolling through until you get to that spring training, basically what called the January, February, whatever, winter workouts? Is it important to get that break?
I think it's important to get the break from actually playing the game. But I'm just a firm believer that if you want to be a really good hitter, you've got to swing the bat year round. You want to be a really good thrower, pitcher, infielder, outfielder, you have to throw year round. If you want to be strong, fast, physical, you got to lift. You got to get in the weight room year round. So I don't necessarily believe in a break from training for the sport. However, it's different for every kid, right? If this young man's getting ready for an intense basketball season, he might need to put a lot more of his energy and effort into basketball because that's the sport of the winter.
Yeah.
And baseball might need to take a back seat. But if you have the young man who just finished football, who's, their body's probably a wreck, they might need a couple weeks after football to get ready for winter training. So it's kind of an athlete case-by-case basis, in my opinion. We have kids in our program who just play baseball and they're ready to roll right from October into November. We have kids who play many different sports and they need to take a little bit of time off here and there. It's just on the club and the team to, I guess, understand what those individuals need and make sure that you're not running them into the ground with too much activity when they might already have enough going on.
I got to ask you guys this question. I'll throw this at you, Mitch, first, and then come back to Dave, because what you brought up there is curious. Because we talk about getting in the weight room, the training. Justin, he's pretty a workout fanatic over there. And we talk about weight training, we talk about nutrition, we talk about these things. And I know from my own experience, weight training, physical training can be very sport specific. So if you're training as a baseball player, do you take and change those for basketball? Do you change those? What do you do to your body? Is that something that we're thinking about with these young athletes?
My whole thing to add to that and then to feed off Dave a little bit is how stressful we are working. I'm with Dave that you don't stop moving. You got to keep movements going, whether it's lifting, playing the other sports, whatever. I just believe that the stress needs to change. If you're into hitting lessons, I'm asking my kids to, if they hit with me once a week, that they swing 300 times during that week. So it's an ongoing process if you want to be a certain level of athlete. If you don't really care about that thing, then take as much time as you want off, but don't expect to have the rewards from this. But as far as the lifting piece goes, when it's baseball off season, if you say, like preparing for high school, I don't necessarily think baseball movements is always what needs to be added, because that's what you're doing during practice. I'm thinking about athletic movements that you might gain from basketball movements, working on your lateral footwork, working on your jump skills, working on explosive movements. I don't necessarily need to build rotational power if I'm doing that already in my winter clinics or winter training. So for me, I'm trying to incorporate that time movements that aren't baseball related. And when it's in season, then I try to manage a little bit with arm care and body care more than I am even lifting. But I'm a firm believer of lifting weights. I'm a big guy, and it's probably the single thing that gave me the confidence to be a big guy and play this sport. It allowed me to be faster. It allowed me to throw the baseball the way I wanted to. It allowed me to hit it the way I wanted to, doubles and dingers, because that's what we do. That for me, I just want to train movements, because our kids don't run and jump enough like they used to. And so I'm trying to train the athleticism more than I am even throw out baseball specific. I'm trying to build an athlete, and I believe everything's got to be trained.
It's an excellent point. I think that sometimes people get hung up on sports specific training, or this is a baseball specific lift versus a basketball specific lift. At the end of the day, like Mitch said, you're trying to build rotational power. Baseball's a rotational sport. The way you throw, the way you hit, you want to be faster, right? So the stronger you are, the more force you put in the ground, the faster you're going to run. So it is all about building the overall athlete versus we're going to do a baseball-specific workout. I don't even know if anybody could explain to me what that really is, if I'm being honest. I've been around a fantastic trainer when I was at Legacy with Nathan Yamnitz, who trains just the area's cream of the crop when it comes to not just baseball players, but football, basketball, track, volleyball. He does an amazing job, and he'd be the first to tell you that it's not a sports-specific lift. It's building the overall athlete.
There you go. I love it.
Same.
Go ahead.
It's the same thing here with CJ Taylor that we have for the athlete. He's doing the same exact thing. Like, he's got D1 basketball players mixed in with high level baseball kids, and they're doing the same exercises, and they're all explosive. They all can jump. They all can run. They can get their bodies moving. So, it's funny to say baseball workout, because I'm like, okay, well, we'll build rotational power. Is that a golf workout? I mean, it's like, what are we really teaching? It's just a niche that I think people are doing to create an avenue to generate more revenue, in my opinion, which is fine.
Say it, you said it.
Well, I'm in the business. I'm in the business. Like, this is what I do for a living. I believe in my skill set, and I am here to make money. Like, it's not I'm not sugarcoating it. I get paid for the service I do.
Absolutely.
That's fair.
Yeah.
And I've always been a proponent of that. That's why, people say, and we're going to get it. It's so great. This is what they call in the biz a segue.
Ah, there we go.
I thought those were those things that you ride like in California on Muscle Beach. For those overweight people.
Those
podiums. Yeah. Aren't those segways?
Yeah, they are called segways.
They are called segways.
Yeah.
So there you go.
Great segue.
Yeah.
I told you I was an idiot. I should have been left-handed.
You can't say that. We're trying to get people to believe what we're saying.
Oh no, they should believe me. I mean, I'm just I got a lot of experience.
You're killing me. Club baseball, we talk about it, as you're saying, and we're talking about these things in the approach and whatnot. You guys are part of clubs, recruits baseball, some success there. Legacy just started again. I like Mike Ott. I like what he's doing over there, doing some good things. New programs, PBA is pretty new, and then there's some older ones that are kind of maybe tilting on going outside, and whatnot. And I looked, because this is what we do. We talk about club baseball, and we're looking through the state. And right now, I have confirmed that we've got 61 clubs in the state of Missouri. Oh. And, people might think, oh, man, that's way too many. Well, you got to think that's the whole state, okay?
How many of those are in St. Louis, though?
Yeah, exactly. Right now, and I think I looked at that, there's 24 clubs in the metro area. That's south to, St. Charles and right now. So when you look at that per capita, that's probably not a lot as far as per capita, but baseball players. So it leads me to think about this and the conversation I want to have throughout the off season. I think it's interesting. Has the growth of the clubs, developed created a competitive hole in certain respects? If we watered down the product a little bit?
Well, I mean, back when Mitch and I were playing, you had Legion Ball, you had Slava,
and
then you had the prospects.
Right.
And you were only on the prospects if you were 85 plus off the bump, and you were a premier player in the area. And then Paul Foltz also had the pros. I think they were around as well. Outside of that, I mean, you're talking about 2 clubs and then Slava and Legion Ball for all the area's high school athletes. So outside of 24, you had 4, right? And really 2 took the cream of the crop, and there were still really good ball players playing Legion and Slava.
Yes.
So I feel like it's gotten. I mean, it used to mean something to say, and I don't want anybody to take this the wrong way, but like when I was a kid, I used to look at prospects players and be like, whoa, like that dude plays for the prospects.
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah.
Now it doesn't take much to play for these clubs. It really doesn't. In order for these clubs to remain in business.
Viable.
Yeah, to stay viable, they've got to have multiple teams at these age groups. If the demand is there, if you're the club, you're crazy if you turn it down. Right. And personally, when Todd and I were trying to build up the recruits, we were very, very good at the high school level for a number of years in the I'd say early 2000s, like 2010 to 2013, 14. And we didn't have any interest in having youth teams.
Right.
Like we didn't even have youth team tryouts. And we thought we were going to be a premier high school baseball club in this area. Well, that's impossible if you don't have youth teams to replenish your high school teams. And we found that out the good old-fashioned way.
The hard way.
The hard way, yeah. Yeah, we went from 12 teams one year to 6 because we're like, we don't want any B teams. We're just going to be a top team, top team, top team. We're only going to take really good teams. And at the end of the day, it didn't matter. We still won. We still lost. We still had kids get their offers. We still had kids not get their offers. Yet we were cutting out this whole other, the most profitable part of club baseball, which is the youth market. And in order to have competitive high school teams, and you're seeing it now with, the Adidas A's have very competitive high school teams now. They have an outstanding youth program.
Yep.
Right? The Tigers, my goodness, like they went from having almost no high school teams to they're loaded with high school teams now because of their youth program. It's so important that you build the entire program instead of just being focused on one aspect.
Right.
And that's the difference between being a club baseball program and being one of those like national travel organizations who just plucks talent from all over. They're trying to build super teams. We're not trying to build super teams. We're trying to build one cohesive group of kids that can play baseball at a very high level. In order to do that in this area, where we usually are pulling kids from 1 or 2 states, you've got to have that youth replenishment every year from 14 into 15, from 13 into 14, in order to stay competitive at 15 on up.
I'm going to jump in here because, and folks, as it's interesting because, I know sometimes I appreciate how you're saying that because I think there's a lot of times this thought process, people, they're just doing it for the money. Yeah. Those facilities cost money. Uniforms cost money. Tournaments cost money. And I think it's a great opportunity to give back and work with kids, athletes, and whatnot. I think it just doesn't bother me. The thing that I think we need to look at is some solutions in a couple things because as we're talking about, I remember, and after those prospect teams, it stayed for a while in that thought process, you're going to be a D1 player, D1 player, D1 player. No. That's just no. But the problem is we don't take into I saw 2 young guys on the mound Sunday throwing at the PBR showcase in Columbia. Very good arm talent. Very good arm talent. Opportunities with some very good D2 schools. What is wrong with that? Nothing. And this is the problem. You can develop and go and play at a very good school. Listen, UCM is one of the best D2 programs in the nation.
Yep.
Stop it with this stuff. Let these kids develop. You know what? Maybe you just have to develop enough to make your high school team. Because I'm telling you, friend, there's some. How do you want to be? How do you feel about going and trying out at Liberty North High School? How do you feel about going and trying out at Francis Howell, who graduated 2 seniors off of that roster?
Yeah.
Good luck.
I know we got to face them. I'm not ready for that. Norfleet's healthy, so that is. I mean, when just thinking about the opportunities. I was a good high school player. It's funny that Dave talks about, all you had was the prospects. The prospects weren't even around when I played. I'm just a few years older, but like I remember the first prospects group was Scherzer's group. And so I had the chance to come back because I actually worked with Jerry when I was younger. And so when I was in college, I came back to, work for Jerry, and that was quite the experience. When we would leave every Wednesday, come back Sunday night, and we would fly somewhere. I mean, it was expensive. We got paid well. The experience was intense because the level of play was just awesome. But anyways, going kind of back to just the experiences now. I played D2 baseball. I had the ability to be recruited to play D1 sports, but I was never going to play right away. I had the ability to go into the MIAA and compete against Central Missouri, and I'm telling you, those kids were as good as any D1 schools that I would have probably faced in a mid-major because I wasn't that level of kid. I believe that there's a place for everybody, but not everybody's going to play college baseball. You might have the smarts and you want to go to a big school and you're not going to play at Mizzou. That's fine. They might have a club team you can get on, or you play adult baseball or something of that nature. You don't have to stop playing the game. But why go sit if you can go to a junior college? That's why I think baseball has such a junior colleges in baseball have such a priority over other schools, is because of the ability to go play right away and the ability to go win. And I'm one of those guys that, like, when I went to Missouri Western, what I was sold on there was the chance to grow the program. And I had a chance to make a change from going from an NAIA school, which was a powerhouse, to then a D2 school who was very bad. I had a chance to change that program into something. And so that lured me there because I had a chance to go right in as a freshman and play. That's why I chose Missouri Western. I wouldn't have gone to UCM and played over there right away. I'd have had to sit because of the style of program that they have. We have kids that went to Central Methodist, which their program the last few years has been very, very good, and guys are going to sit. For me, it's like, I don't want to sit. I wanted to play. So to me, I'm telling my guys, hey, let's look at junior colleges. Don't be embarrassed because it's a community college. That's how they look at it. It's like, it's a chance to play. It's a chance to win. And I think for me, that's ultimately what my goal was, is I wanted to go win something. There was no way that if I went to a small D1 that I was going to beat a Vanderbilt. I'm not doing that at Missouri State. Well, I guess Missouri State I would have, but SEMO.
I mean, now more than
I
ever,
wasn't good enough for Missouri State.
Now more than ever, junior college baseball is insanely competitive, because you have the COVID rules with those 4-year schools. You got an 18-year-old kid, graduates high school, understands that he's going to be up against, if he goes to Division I, even Power 5 especially, he's going to be against 4 or 5 players at his position who are grown men, who are 24, 25 years old even. And we were in Indianapolis this weekend for a 15U tournament, and they had the Puma Classic there, which is some of the nation's best junior college programs. And they were essentially being showcased in front of, I'd never seen so many college coaches in my life. And they were all Power 5s. Coach Vitella from Tennessee was there. Louisville was there. I mean, you're talking, if you have D1 dreams and you're not there quite yet, and you have that ability, that junior college route is amazing. Yeah, I mean, you're talking lefty from Jeffco is up to 94. A couple of righties from Parkland were in the low to mid 9s. I mean, these kids that are just Division I or bust, they need to go watch a Division II baseball game. They need to go watch a junior college baseball game. They need to go watch Webster U play Wash U at the D3 level.
Oh, yeah.
And realize how good these dudes are. It is a higher level of baseball than anyone who hasn't played varsity baseball could ever comprehend. And I just feel like that first barometer for, is this kid going to be good enough to play at the collegiate level? Can he, A, make his varsity team? And then B, can he produce on his varsity team? And, that's something that these big schools that are offering kids early, they just assume that that's what's going to happen. And they know that if they can lock this kid up as he's a 14, 15-year-old kid, not many other schools are going to be after him, and their opportunity of getting him could be higher. But it's all an educated guess.
Yeah.
Until you see a young man. I mean, the most impressive, and I didn't even get to see him live, the most impressive player to me last year at the high school level was Leo Humbert, because as a freshman, he hit one of the best lineups in the state as a freshman, as a 14, 15-year-old kid. Like, there aren't many of those around.
No.
And when you have one, that dude's special to me. That's a Power 5 guy, in my opinion.
And you're right. And he hit 400
with power.
And that is one out of.
Oh, can't even count how many freshmen played. I mean, maybe 50 freshmen played varsity baseball last year in Missouri.
Yeah.
And then count the other probably thousands that played freshman and JV. That's one kid.
And not to take away from some of these freshmen that played at maybe a 3A school or something like that.
Sure.
To your point, it's Francis Howell playing in the GAC 6A baseball.
He's facing a good arm every time out. You know it. And that's a huge thing for these coaches, is if they know that you can hit the pitchers that they want, they're going to want you. And that's why a lot of these kids that play at smaller high schools, they get passed up or they get left behind because Cooley hit 650, but we don't know who he faced.
Right.
We have no idea.
And this goes back to my point, as when we're talking about development, these youth players, and we were talking about the bats and all these things, and I want to come back to this because I think this is very important. Let's focus on high school first. Are we getting these kids ready to play at a high level just for high school? Once they get to high school, then as you're in that movement of the clubs and the things, and I love the development that these things are putting together for these kids, but I think we need to tone back some of the talk about college at the 9, 10, 11, or 12U ranks, and just let them play baseball. Go play baseball. Let's develop them, learn how to play the game, talk to them. Parents, please do the same. Let the coaches help your player, get involved, talk to them, listen to what the coaches are telling you, listen to what the instructors help your child, learn the language to help your child understand these things. And I think if we go in this direction, I think we'll see a better overall game, even at the AA levels and the things like that, because regardless of what we'd like to think, there's very few real AAA major teams.
Yep.
Most, I would say, I'm going to say 90% or better, 95% of the teams that play are at a AA level. Am I wrong, guys?
No, not at all. I mean, it depends on your interpretation of AAA major.
Right.
I would say they fall in that AA, AAA category. But when you're talking major, and if you know what a major team is, there are very, very few major teams in every state, without a doubt.
I can't agree more. I mean, being at the AA level for my first year, being back in baseball and experiencing some of the open events, like we played that Wow Factor team down in Springfield, or when we were down in Branson. Now that team to me was a very, very good team. They had size, they had athleticism, they had kids that could throw. That to me was a major level group, or at least a AAA team. But going against Gas House this year with Basta's Gas House team, they were just really, really good at AA. So that just begs to differ whether the difference really is A to AA. That probably is the bigger difference to me, when there's a lot of single A teams trying to play AA than there is AA teams calling themselves AAA groups. We ended the season playing in a AAA tournament. It happened to be the same guys we faced in AA. They just all moved up to the end of the year, and we all competed very well. And it happened to be the better of the AA teams that played against each other. And it was a fun end of the year tournament for Game 7. And so, for me, I think what changes is when you get to the high school, they throw that out. There's no real AA, AAA anymore. You're a high school age group, and now we figure out where you're at as a player. It always did bother me that we label these athletes. I think that we should I know that it has to happen because you don't want a recreational team going and playing majors or against a major group or a AA high level team. So I understand that piece. But we should, as coaches, identify what our groups are. I think it should start there. We should not advertise. We should not sell something
that we're not,
that you may not be even as a coach.
Yep. That's a very good point. Because you're going to run into a lot of teams who claim to be AAA major, who good and well are a really good AA team. And the coach knows that if he throws that AAA in front of their name or behind their name, he might pull this player here, that player there. And that's, like you said earlier, that's where it comes to, it's all in the perception. Can I pull player X, Y, Z over here because I put a AAA after my name? Whereas if I stayed AA, they wouldn't come over. And that it comes to the integrity of it all. At the end of the day, I mean, you can be a AA team and play in a AAA major age group or a competitive group all you want. If you want to challenge your boys, if you're done, winning a bunch of AA games, you can remain that AA team and enter into any GMB Game 7 AAA major tournament you would like. Eric and Dave are not going to turn you down.
No, they're going to come on.
Right, exactly. Like, you want to play up? Let's go.
And you'll definitely find out real quick whether or not you belong. And, everybody has to understand, for me, I tell people all the time, when someone asks me about a certain age group, I ask them what they're looking for in a team. And, you always hear that word development. And to me, I'm like, well, why are you going there? They just put you in classes and they run you through a mill. Like where's the personal touch to this? I always encourage people to chase the coach and not necessarily chase the status of a team or the level of that group unless they're a premier type kid. And they're just, because a lot of this obviously is a lot of AA kids. Chase the coach, chase that guy that has the passion to develop, that is going to teach you the game of baseball. I'm sure everybody that's on this panel and is probably watching, one of the biggest struggles that we have in general is not athleticism. It is the IQ of the sport. I'm not talking about IQ in the books. I'm talking about the sport, understanding your cuts and relays. The simplest things in this sport create the biggest problems, avoiding the mistakes of giving up extra bases because you throw the ball 7 miles in the air because you think you have an arm from a 330-foot fence to throw the guy out at the dish. Like it just things like that. I always think will separate the higher level kids to everybody else is simply IQ. And I feel like growing up playing baseball, the one thing that helped me is because I had an IQ in the sport that helped me prepare to be a better player in every situation, to anticipate bunts, to anticipate guys stealing, understanding what good counts to run on are, good counts to hit and run. You have coaches that don't even understand these things. And it's very hard to me to want to encourage someone to go play for a guy that doesn't even understand the game. And call it what you want. Call it my ego. I don't care. I feel like I have a very good knowledge of this sport and I can identify some things. And I'm very passionate, like I said, about this. I love listening to the games on television because you have people talking baseball. You have people make mistakes on TV, they're the same as the youth, but they talk about the whys. And we just don't have kids doing that no more. And I think that's a big issue in our sport is IQ. So find that coach that's going to help you teach that or learn that or challenge you to learn it.
That's good.
I think that this is why we have Dave on the show, or Mitch on the show. Sorry, man.
That's okay. Dave's my first name.
Yeah. Mitch. That's why we got Mitch on the show because, he says stuff and I can go, hey, Mitch said it, not me.
Hey. There's a lot of people out there that dislike me for being honest, and I'm all right with it.
You're 100% right, and I feel like the coaches that will shy away from teaching certain important aspects of the game to young kids and chalk it up to they're not ready for that, that's laziness is purely what it is. If you knew how to teach player A at 9 or 10 years old how to run a pick play to second, or how to run a back pick to first base, or how to do an inside move to a runner on second, there's no age that determines whether they're ready for that or not. And those are competitive advantages that you can use against your opponents in games that not only get you wins, but that really amplify what it's like to play the game at a high level and get you ready for high school ball, and can be a huge check mark next to your name when you do something special, like at a tryout for freshman baseball, right? There's a ground ball hit to you at shortstop and there's a runner on second, and you boot that ball. And you come up and you fake a throw to get the runner out at first, and you get that runner from second rounding third, and you throw him out. Any high school coach in the nation is going to be like, where the heck did that kid learn how to do that? Like, that's high level. Yes. And if you as a coach can cultivate that in your young infielders from 9, 10 years old, and they're doing that on fields at 12U, that's special. And that's where that baseball IQ, I believe, comes from. You know, everybody's big on catchers should call their own game. Catchers should call their own game. Yeah, at some point, but they don't learn to call a game by calling a game blindly. They learn to call a game by you as the coach calling the game for them, explaining why you called what pitch and what scenario, and having a conversation. And throughout those many games of you calling the game and this young man learning why you want this pitch here, why you want that there, then he learns, okay, I've got an idea. I have a roadmap now for how I'm going to call this game. But just throwing a kid out there, hey, man, you got this one. And he's like, all right, cool, fastball, 0-2, curveball. That's not learning how to call a game. No. We have to teach them how to do these things. We can't just expect them to do them because they're baseball players. That's my thing.
I agree, because especially going back to that aspect, you know, that's something I always talked about. Justin grew up, he was a pitcher. How do you construct an out? And if you don't know how as a catcher, at some point, you're going to get predictable.
Absolutely.
And you sit on a fastball, boom, boom, and then you wonder, how come we're getting beat 12-0? Oh, I can kind of help you with that. And a game plan and understanding how to construct a game plan. How do you pitch to this team second time through?
Right.
And at the major league level, even, this is a big, tough deal.
Oh yeah.
Getting through that lineup the third time.
Some pitchers aren't allowed to get through the lineup the third time.
It's true. It's true. It's not easy, and it's just a high level skill, and there are very few catchers that really, I think, take that to another level. I mean, of course, you see guys like Yadier Molina. That is the epitome, in my opinion.
We've been very blessed to have Yadi to watch for the last however many years. You got the best in the game that you can literally turn your TV on and watch how he goes about his business. That's pretty cool.
It is, man.
Yeah.
It really is. So these are all things, guys, that I think we talk about fall ball. Right?
This is where you learn it. This is where you learn. Like, when you have the opportunity, Dave talked about it very quick on the first part of the show. When you're going through the fall and you're giving the reins to the catcher to call his game, and this is the first time he's worked with you or whatever, this is a time where charting matters, right? And you're having conversations with your pitchers and catchers between innings on understanding why we want to throw these pitches here, there, you know, what the situations were. You learn that then, so that when you're in the championship game of a tournament, that you can shut it down with having the confidence as a coach to say, hey, you're going to call this game because you learned that in the fall. And I think these are just added bonuses to what you can learn from your pens in the fall to your game-like situations in the fall. And I just it's a lost art, I think, and David mentioned this earlier too, about being lazy as coaches. And maybe it's difficult because you only have 2 coaches on your team, and maybe one of them's really only a coach and the other one's just kind of a stand-in. But how often can you actually sit and have a conversation after an inning with your pitcher and catcher? Because you immediately have to go out there to third base. It's great to have a deep staff. I think that's why it's important to have a deep team, is to be able to have challenge these young people. And I think it promotes IQ, and it promotes awareness in the game by having these conversations, especially if you consider yourself a person of high IQ in this sport. We have to teach these guys. This is what I do this is what my go-to is for Timberland. I don't go coach bases. I pull kids aside and I have conversation with them on hitting approaches and what they're thinking and at bats to get them to think outside the box, because it's not all cookie cutter stuff. That it's the job of the other team to try to challenge us, pitch backwards. And what does that mean? Like kids don't know that anymore. And so that's my job, to teach that, to get their thought process, to change it mid game, because, first team to make adjustments usually wins, right? And there's a steady dose of adjustments in this game. So yeah, fall is where you learn a lot about what, kind of intestinal fortitude your boys have.
Yep.
And I don't mean just skill set and toughness. I mean everything.
Dave Wiggins, got to come back and see us, buddy.
Yeah, I'd love to.
Real soon. Yeah,
I'm coming back in person because I like Dave. I got to make sure that I'm there next time. I apologize for not being in there, but I'm trying to get my facility redesigned, and I like talking with Dave because. Well, no, I like Dave. I like Dave maybe more than you, Brian.
That's okay.
I'm kidding.
No,
I want to stay on the show. No, I'm kidding. I just Dave has a very similar thought, and really I just appreciate his young energy and what he is trying to do. And we're obviously two different organizations, same game plan. I'm excited to be a part of somebody that shares that passion. That's why I love doing this show with you, Brian, is the passion that you guys have. So I love being there. I always
Likewise.
like to shake Dave's hand. For sure. There we go. We'll shake from here.
Just one final thing. Obviously being a high school coach, every 11, 12, 13, 14-year-old kid that is playing this game in any of our clubs, their ultimate goal is to play high school baseball. That's why they're doing this. That's why mom and dad are having them do this, is they want them to make their high school team, whether that's the freshman JV varsity. I honestly think 95% of them would settle for freshmen, because there's something special about representing your school as an athlete. And we as club coaches have to understand the importance and the significance of high school baseball. And I feel like the clubs that are able to work in conjunction with high school baseball coaches and respect what the high school baseball coaches want out of their players, those clubs are going to keep going far, in this industry and in this business, because it's not just about what we can do for this young man. It's about what can I do for him? What can his high school coach do for him? What can his dad do for him? What can his hitting coach do for him? It's more than just what we can do. And, when you're coaching these kids, yes, it's fun to win. It's great to win. But the ultimate goal for player A is to make his high school team. So how can I help this young man make his high school team? That should always be on our forefront when we're coaching these kids at the youth level. How can I make sure that this young man's high school coach is going to want him? And sometimes it's knowing who the coach is. I got some Francis Howell kids on my 15U team. You darn well better believe I'm coaching them a little harder this fall, because I know who their coach is. I know who's going to be.
Are you teaching them how to bunt?
They know how to bunt. But I'm making sure that they understand, hey, I'm going to coach you a little bit harder this fall, because here's who's going to be coaching you in the spring.
And that's a great point. And I'm going to finish up. We got to get done here. But I love that, because, it just made me think, here's Coach Perkins tweeting in the 12th inning of that Cardinals game.
Yep.
This is why everybody's losing, because nobody knows how to bunt.
Yep.
It was hilarious.
It was good. It was good.
It's because it's true for him. Like when we are in I'll never forget that he had Norfleet bunting in a situation, and we were in a close game with them for Timberland and Howe, and Norfleet's bunting. He just hit a ball his previous at bat off the fence, and I'm like, this kid's 6'8", whatever he is, can swing out of whatever. I was going to say something else, but he lays down a bunt, and I'm thinking to myself, what is he doing? And he doesn't execute the bunt. He actually made him bunt all 3 times. And to me, it's what helps Tony win. And he is dead set on it. It is his process. And for any of you young guys, like Dave said, get out and watch your high school programs too. If you're 13, 14 years old, get out, watch, so that you know what to prepare for.
Yep.
There you go.
Gold.
Dave Wiggins recruits a baseball club, Webster Groves, right?
Yes, sir. Yes,
High
sir.
school
Webster
varsity
Groves.
baseball coach. We're going to have to get out and watch you guys play this year.
Please. We've got an outstanding catcher committed to Missouri State, William Zera.
Okay, yeah.
Kid is special.
Very
He's going to
good.
be very fun to watch.
We'll have to do it.
Hey, we can make something happen right here, right on the show, Dave. I can. How are we gonna get you out to Timberland or something? Get you out to the TACs.
I live in Webster Groves, man. We just built a house there.
Okay, well then we'll go
graduated
play
from
at Wash U. I got ties at Wash U. We'll go play on Wash U's brand new field.
There you go. I like that. No, I will travel anywhere to play some baseball. You find me a field, my boys will show up.
There you go.
Let's go. We're gonna make it happen. You're gonna come out and record it.
Oh,
You
yeah.
should.
Yeah,
You gotta
yeah,
come
we'll
out and do it live.
Be a
Yeah,
lot
if
of
it's
fun.
on a Friday, we'll do some little Friday night baseball.
Oh yeah.
You know,
There we go.
Wash you. I'll bring
Early
the cameras
season.
out, bro. We'll call it. Absolutely. That's it. I have baseball. We'll travel. Right?
There you go. Yep.
There you go.
Let's go.
I really enjoyed this show, Mitch. Always a pleasure. Dave Wiggins, thank you. You're going to come back on. We'll get you back on schedule. It was a great conversation, man. Appreciate it. Appreciate the knowledge. Hope you folks enjoyed it. Please, if you enjoyed this, comment below. I've got my foot stuck, about to yank my headphones off. Comment below. Hit that subscribe button. Hit the dinger, because that's what we do around here, right?
We hit doubles and dingers.
Exactly. And so we appreciate that very much. Everybody, have a great day in the Lord. All you pitchers, keep throwing strikes, and you hitters,
Keep hitting dingers.
There we go.
Right?
I told you I wanted
I'm
to
a
change it
pitching
up, and
guy,
he did
man.
it, so that's perfect.
I love it. We'll see y'all next time.